Well, good morning, everybody. Such a nice morning to talk shop about a very important area of environmental policy. And I'm just so excited to be here with so many great environmental champions and friends. My name is Ben Allen, state senator from Southern California, the 24th district, and I've been working in this space of waste reduction and plastic pollution for quite some time. And I want to especially kind of say how I'm just so excited to see the leadership of Senator Blakespear and Assemblymember Bauer-Kahan in this area. I want to give a very special shout out to Rebecca, who unfortunately is not able to join us here today. She's just been such a terrific advocate for protecting our environment, and I'm looking forward to partnering with her in this effort. So as California legislators, we're very fortunate, not just because of the environmental policies that we pursue enjoys really broad public support, but also because as the fifth or fourth largest economy in the world, depending on how you count it, we know that what we do here really does end up having ripple effects globally. And that's something that's very special here. We're not just on our own when we make these decisions. We're making decisions that end up impacting markets and have global implications. Obviously, the most kind of clear example is that of clean car standards. I remember when I was a kid, there were kids growing up with in some parts of Southern California that literally had half of the lung capacity of kids in other parts of the country because of how bad the air quality was. And we knew that what we really needed to do was come in there and put in place tougher standards. And the automobile industry was able to respond. They did change their ways. The technology existed, but they needed to be pushed. And they did. Now we have far more cars on the road in Los Angeles than ever before, but the air is significantly cleaner. And that was one of many, many successes. I mean, more recently, of course, we passed SB 343, the truth in labeling bill that we worked on together, which is now being copied elsewhere. And it basically says that if you're not truly recyclable, you shouldn't be able to put the recycling symbol on your material, which ultimately was just gumming up the system. And then, of course, most recently, really proud of all the work we did together to pass SB 54, which is really now the country's most comprehensive plastic pollution prevention program. And now other states are reaching out to us. They're interested in following suit. So as most of you know, a decade ago, we were the first state to ban the thin throwaway plastic bags that were polluting our environment and wreaking havoc on our waste and recycling system. And of course, among many people, Senator Alex Padilla was a big part of that effort, now in the U.S. Senate. Now, many states, of course, have followed on and followed our example, but in the ensuing 10 years, we've seen other states and municipalities do the job better because there were some, I'm going to say, loopholes in the original bill. And we've now learned how to more effectively reduce plastic waste. While we intended to ban single-use plastic grocery bags and promote reusable options, we've instead seen a shift to thicker plastic bags that were allowed under the bill. And we've actually, in some respects, seen an increase in plastic waste and pollution. That's not what consumers demanded when they overwhelmingly voted to support California's bag ban at the ballot box when the policy was challenged. Our Californians want less plastic, not more. That's why I'm so proud to be standing here today with my colleagues introducing measures that will finally deliver on that promise. These bags will, these bills that we're talking about here today, SB 1053 and AB 2236, will ban the thick plastic grocery bags that have become ubiquitous, that are not, in fact, recyclable, and they are not being reused. They're simply creating more plastic pollution. Let me just quickly give a shout out to some of the wonderful organizations that are here today. Californians Against Waste, Environmental California, ASUL, great partners from the environmental justice community. We work so closely together on SB 54. Of course, the incredible young people power of CalPerg that has been just the fantastic, so much energy every step of the way. CalPerg has been on this fight. And we've been working together for so long, and it's just so great to see the next generation of college students and high school students that come through and bring all of this energy and, of course, the incredible costumes as well. Let me also give a shout out to the Grocers Association that are here. I really appreciate their partnership. This has been a long journey of partnership with industry, and it's just so fantastic to have the grocers standing alongside us here today in support. And then, of course, my good friend, Assemblymember Tasha Borna-Horvath, who represents
Divorce.
That's right. Okay. Tasha Burner, who's here, burned me with that, and I appreciate that too. So Tasha and Senator Blakespear represent the same communities of Encinitas and Oceanside, and they care so deeply about this issue. Just like me, we're from coastal districts, and we see the devastating impact of all this plastic pollution on our beaches. So without further ado, let me hand over the microphone to the leader in this effort, along with Rebecca Bauer-Kahan, a fantastic senator who's just hit the ground running, who has also, in addition to trying to make changes statewide, has been leading the fight to promote more sustainability right here in our capital. Quite frankly, when she got here, she was calling shame on us, because we weren't practicing some of the same sustainability practices that we were trying to promote elsewhere. And under her leadership, we are now shifting toward a whole slew of more sustainable practices right here in our capital. And that's just one example of the dogged, tireless, focused attention that the wonderful senator from Encinitas is putting toward environmental protection. Senator Blakespear.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everybody. My name is Senator Catherine Blakespear, and I represent the 38th District, which is northern San Diego County and parts of Orange County, southern Orange County. And I want to start off by thanking Senator Allen for his many years of leadership on environmental issues, really transformative laws that we are so lucky to have you here in the state Senate working on those things, and thank you so much for your leadership. He's been focused on eliminating plastic waste and also the full circular economy when it comes to the environment. I also want to recognize my colleague to my left here, Assemblymember Burner. We represent similar districts in northern San Diego County, and I'm really happy to have her standing here in support as well. And then Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahan, she has a long history of environmental advocacy and leadership in the Assembly, and unfortunately she's not able to be here today. But I'm looking forward to working very closely with her because we're advancing this legislation in both houses, the Assembly and the Senate. And so I know this is a very important topic for her, and she would be here if she could be. And then I want to say thank you to all of the youth volunteers behind us, and also to the plastic monster. Can you just step forward a little, make a little room for him to step forward. So you can really see the scope of the problem here with these plastic bags. Yeah, step just a little more forward. I know. Oh, there's a string. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't see that string. But this, when you see this, is it not obvious that we have a plastic pollution problem with the plastic bags? It's disgusting, honestly. You see this kind of thing and you realize, what are we doing to our planet? This is all going into our oceans. It's being eaten by fish. This is just absolutely awful. So thank you for stepping forward. It must be hot in there. So if you've been paying attention, reading the news, looking around, you realize that we are literally choking our planet with plastic waste. Globally, we use an estimated 5 trillion bags just a year, 5 trillion a year. And the average American uses one plastic bag a day. What is the average lifespan of a plastic bag? Bags like that, their lifespan is 12 minutes. 12 minutes. That's on average. And then how long does it take for them to degrade in our atmosphere? Over 1,000 years. So for a 12-minute lifespan and the convenience of carrying your groceries home, it goes into what some people think is recycling, but really is not recycling. It goes into our landfills. It goes into our oceans. It goes into everything we eat. So this effect on clogging our sewage drains, contaminating our drinking water, degenerating into these toxic microplastics that fester in our oceans. We realize what is the effect of this. It's the death of at least 100,000 marine mammals and 1 million seabirds each year. In 2004, CalRecycle released a waste characterization study and found that Californians disposed of 147,000 tons of plastic grocery and merchandise bags. That's roughly 8 pounds per person. And by 2021, that had climbed to 11 pounds per person. So from 2004 to 2021, it climbed from 8 pounds per person to 11 pounds per person of plastic, grocery, and merchandise bags. What does that data show? It shows that the plastic bag ban that we passed in this state in 2014 did not reduce the overall use of plastic. It actually resulted in a substantial increase in plastic. And that's because the thin bags are no longer being used, but the thick bags are, and they are no more recyclable than those thin bags were. There was a heavier plastic bag exemption that was allowed under the previous ban, and that this was clearly flawed because those bags are not recyclable. There is study after study following those bags to see what happened to them, and literally none of them are recycled. So there are no examples of recycling of those bags. In fact, CalRecycle earlier this year issued a covered material categories list. And what it says is that all plastic film, including those polyethylene film that's used to make those heavier plastic bags, are not recyclable. So CalRecycle has even said those bags are not recyclable. So our legislation is really straightforward and clear. It bans those plastic bags. So stores can provide 100% recycled paper bags, or consumers can use their reusable bags. And those are the two options. Use your reusable bags once you buy your groceries, or use paper bags. This is really not a problem for many grocery stores, and we are so grateful to have support of the California Grocers Association. That is really a critical piece of support, and in having conversations with them, the question of why do you support this, the answer is we want to do what's right for the planet, and we're not really in the bag business. We're in the grocery business. So we would love to move to a solution that levels the playing field for every store and makes it so that we're doing our part to protect the environment. We know this is also not a problem for consumers because there are places like Trader Joe's that already do this. So everybody, thousands and thousands of people shopping at Trader Joe's only are walking out with their paper bags and not their plastic bags. So frankly, this is really overdue. And I'm really thrilled to be able to partner with Senator Allen and Assemblymember Bauer-Kahan and all the other partners like Assemblymember Berner who are here today, who are just as passionate about this bill, because this is really important. It's the first step among many we need to take in order to reduce our plastic waste and do better by the environment. So next up, I'd like to introduce Tomas Valadez, and he's with the Ocean and Coastal Justice Organization Azul. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Blakespear, and good morning, everyone. My name is Tomas Valadez. I am the California Policy Associate with Azul. It is great to be here today to support this legislation, which will help reduce plastic pollution in the state. Work to achieve a legally binding plastics treaty is currently underway, and building on California's single-use carry-out bag ban, SB 270, is more important than ever. The plastics crisis requires real governmental action, and it is great to see the U.S. leadership front and center in California. Azul proudly joins these legislative leaders in advancing solutions to address the crisis and to address the crisis for plastic pollution and environmental injustice in the state. Thank you. And I will now hand it over to Mark Murray with the Californians Against Waste.
Thanks, Tomas. Mark Murray with the environmental group Californians Against Waste. Thank you, Senator Allen, for your leadership on these issues, and Senator Blakespear for your emerging leadership on these issues. They trot me out when they need a little bit of background and history on these issues. And it was 17 years ago that the young mayor of San Francisco signed into law, the first plastic bag ban in the United States. Gavin Newsom signed that law way before there was any such thing as a thicker plastic bags. And San Francisco survived without those thicker plastic bags for over a decade. People brought their own bags. If they needed a bag, they bought a recycled paper bag. 10 years ago, as we noted, Senator Padilla, that former state senator, now Senator Padilla, introduced this month, 10 years ago, introduced SB 270. As we know, that ultimately became law, and overnight, all the plastic bags disappeared. Not exactly. The plastic bag industry put a measure on the ballot which forced us to defend that policy before voters. And in November 2016, voters passed this ban on single-use plastic bags. Now, a fun fact about that is that by the time that measure was on the ballot in November 2016, more than half the population of California was already living under a local ordinance banning single-use plastic bags. And those local ordinances did not have a provision for the thicker plastic bags. The counties that overwhelmingly passed Prop 67 back in 2016 were those counties that were already living with this ordinance. They were already living with the policy that these legislators are putting forward today. And it was those voters, from their experience of living with no single-use plastic bags, no thicker plastic bags, that overwhelmingly passed this measure. So we're getting back to the policy that voters adopted and supported in 2016. Now, the plastic bag manufacturers, they convinced us, as part of a way of getting this damn legislation through in 2014, that we should create a pathway for these thicker, reusable, recyclable plastic bags. Reusable 125 times, recyclable at every grocery store. Well, the plastic bag manufacturers have failed over 10 years to bring that into reality. These bags are not getting reused, and they're not getting recycled. So it's time to end the experiment, and we're appreciative of the members of the legislature, of Senator Blakespear and Senator Allen and RBK and Senator Berner. Assemblymember Berner, for bringing this forward, and we look forward to working with you all on it.
So I wasn't planning on speaking, so I'll just give some local color to this whole thing. I want to say Senator Blakespear has been a leader on plastic bag bans before I was ever elected. So she recruited me to run for city council. I'm now an assembly member. If you don't like what I do, blame her. But she has been leading this charge in Encinitas and beyond for decades. You're such a leader on this issue, and I'm so happy to be here in support. And Senator Allen and I were on a recycling trip in summer, and we were having lunch. I don't know where we were. Where were we? What city? We were in Calgary? We're in Calgary. I don't know where we were. We were somewhere in Canada, and we were looking at recycling. And I was like, yeah. So what you don't know about me is I have 2 kids. I'm divorced. So I order Instacart every Thursday. So when I get home, there's milk, there's eggs, there's food for my kids. And with that Instacart order comes a plastic bag. It's a thicker plastic bag. And so I was like putting them in my recycling bin. I was feeling good about it. I was putting in the recycling bin. So we're having lunch one day in the middle of summer. I've been doing this for like 4 years. We're having lunch one day. He's like, you know, Tasha, you're contaminating the waste stream. I was like, no, they have the recycling symbol on them. They're fine. I go home and I look at it and it says you have to take them back to the grocery store. When you order Instacart and you don't go to the store, there's no way to take them back. Right. And so I was like, oh crap. I'm like a lefty environmentalist. I think I'm doing something great for the planet, great for my children, and I've been contaminating the waste stream. So when I saw this bill come up today, I'm so grateful for Rebecca Bauer-Kahan, Catherine Blakespear, and Ben Allen for leading on this issue, because now I will not contaminate the waste stream. I'll get paper bags, and I'll feel really good about myself at the end of the day. So really want to thank you all for your leadership. That's a little local color for your newspapers. But they've really been the leaders. I'm just a co-author, and I'm so grateful for this because, you know, in the legislature, people take on different issues. And we have great leaders on certain issues. It means I don't have to do the work. And these are the people doing the work. So thank you very much.
All right. Hello. My name is Jen Engstrom, and I am the state director for CalPerg. We are a public interest group with members across the state and thousands of excited student volunteers as well who care deeply about protecting the environment. And we very much want to thank the authors, so thanking Senators Allen and Blakespear and Assembly members Bauer-Kahan and Boner for your thank you for your leadership in addressing plastic waste. We've known for a long time that plastic bags are wasteful. We just don't need them, and they end up creating plastic pollution in our communities and in the environment. Plastic bags that we use to transport our groceries home, they don't decay and they're not recyclable. So every plastic bag we've ever used is still out there somewhere, contaminating our communities and harming our wildlife and our oceans. What's worse, plastic breaks into small pieces called microplastics that have ended up in every corner of the globe, including human bodies, which is potentially exposing us to harmful compounds and additives. So nothing that we use for 5 minutes should end up threatening public health and polluting our environment for hundreds of years, especially something that we just don't need. So that's why we need a stronger bag ban here in the state of California. And we know that well-designed plastic bag bans are effective at reducing litter. A new report by CalPerg Education Fund and the Environment California Research and Policy Center found that well-designed plastic bag laws are effective, and states that have basically better than our bag ban have been able to reduce litter and reduce plastic bags by 300 per person per year on average. Our report also found that, unfortunately, California's bag ban is not working as intended. Especially in the last few years, the plastics industry has circumvented our law's intent by mass producing these thicker plastic bags that they claim are exempt from the law because they can technically meet the definition of reusable. But as you've heard, they are really not being reused, and they end up as litter just as much as the thinner ones did. And because these plastic bags are thicker, we end up actually having more plastic waste. And the state of California has had more plastic waste from plastic bags by weight on record. So we're at a record high now for our plastic waste. So we need to close the loophole. It's that simple, that allows for these thicker bags to be in our community. We need to truly ban the bag. And if we do so, we can help to create greener, cleaner future for all of these guys. So again, we want to thank you all so much for your leadership on this issue. And I'll introduce Daniel Conway with the California Grocers Association.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. First of all, I just want to thank the authors, Senator Blakespear, Assemblymember Bauer-Kahan, and as well as Senator Allen for your longtime leadership on these issues and as well as partnering with us on this legislation. I'll say, this morning got off to kind of an awkward start for me because when I showed up at the press conference, I was also wearing a turtle outfit. And so luckily there's a men's room right around the corner, so I was able to change real quick. But anyway, these things kind of come up at these press conferences. So anyway, as you've heard, I'm Daniel Conway, California Grocers Association. And, this journey began for our industry 10 years ago with the passage of SB 270. As you've heard, we saw at the time there was a mishmash of local ordinances that were making it hard for both consumers as well as our companies to understand really what the law of the land was. And so at the time, it made sense to come up with a statewide standard that was revolutionary at the time. And I think we should appreciate SB 270 for what it was. At the same time, I think like most good laws, you have to take a look and you have to adapt to changes in the world that we live in. And so from our perspective, the reason we're here today is because we recognize that, yes, like consumers are ready to move on from plastic bags. We've seen that in other states like New York and New Jersey, and we're confident from what we see in the retail space today that this is something that we can move on with. And at the same time, as has been mentioned, paper bags will still be an option. So I think consumers will not be, walking out of stores with a handful of their groceries. I think at the end of the day, for our organization, we are constantly trying to think about what is in the best interest of the communities that we serve. And so for our perspective, this legislation is just a step in that direction as we look to not only be stewards of our community, but stewards of the environment. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you again to everybody who is here today and to all of the student activists who care about the future of the planet. We're so grateful for you. Yes, thank you. And with that, we'll take questions if there are any. Yes.
So, to SB 270, 10 years ago, did that preempt all the local ordinances, or are those still in place, those backgrounds?
Maybe we should. Yes.
Because there was somebody said something earlier about at the time that they voted like half people were living under.
Right.
I just want to see if that was still true. And the other question is, from a national perspective, every time California tries to ban something, I feel like everybody else is like, oh, there goes California again, trying to ban something. Can you speak to that sentiment that's out there that California's always out there banning things?
I mean, California is a leader in many ways, and this is an example of that. So if if the market is not creating what we want, which is that we're using less plastic, creating less plastic, disposing of less plastic, then we need to use the legislative and regulatory tools that we have to try to create a cleaner, safer planet. So I think this is an example of California leading, and it's one of many examples of that in many, many different areas.
Question here.
Yes.
I want to use props in my story tonight, so I want to make sure I'm crystal clear in terms of the accuracy. So reusable bags, like this political one, that's okay. This Trader Joe's paper bag, that's fine. But to be crystal clear, this
Exactly.
and as of when is that?
It's 2026.
2026.
Yes.
And can I hear from you, Madam Senator, or whoever up here, just one more time? I know you spoke when the gentleman in the.
Do you want him to come back to the front?
Yeah, but I know you had said, I think, like it's disgusting, right? If you could just talk one more time about the climate impacts of
Yes. Here, let's have him come back around. So when you see this plastic monster right here, you can see how disgusting all of this plastic is. This is in our waterways, it's in our food, it's in our bodies. And we are creating thousands and thousands of pounds of this every single day. And so we want to get rid of this. We don't want to have this blowing around in the wind and going into our waterways and everything. So so this is the point of the bill, is to say we are not going to have these kinds of bags distributed when you're done buying your groceries. You'll have to have a paper bag or a reusable bag, but not this kind of plastic.
But what I would also say is it's the thicker plastic bags that you showed earlier that are really the problem. Those plastic bags take longer to degrade in landfills, and they're the ones that Ben Allen pointed out that I'm contaminating the waste stream from. They're not recyclable, even though they have the recyclable symbol, which is why we had your bill. What was your bill?
343.
343. That's why
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm a co-author on that.
Yeah.
I was a co-author on that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But that's why he had it, because literally, I'm a lefty environmentalist. I got elected, and I want to save the planet for my children. And I'm doing this thinking I'm doing the right thing, and I'm not doing the right thing.
One thing I'll also say to your question, we are actually behind several other states on this issue now. So this is not California. We led the way with 270, but now with New York and New Jersey having taken the lead. And by the way, I think that those examples gave our friends from the grocer community the confidence to know that the world didn't end. They've got real live examples from those two states that have had these significantly stronger bans in effect. And things are going well there. So this is actually an area where we took the first stab many years ago. We fell behind, and now we're getting up to parity with some of our with some other states.
Does this require voter approval at all?
No. That was because there was a referendum against the.
You're not making changes like an initiative.
No. But I'm glad you bring up the measure, because it was an emphatic voice of support for this general line of policy by the electorate.
Would you expect that kind of opposition again this time from plastic bag manufacturers?
Do you want to?
I think there's been consolidation in the industry. So the bags that are provided to grocers are the plastic and the paper are provided by the same company. So if 200 bags are being provided, instead of half being paper, half being plastic, then it's just all being all paper. So we're hopeful that there will be a recognition that this is an important thing to do, and that there's broad support, and that we wouldn't face a lot of opposition, but we don't know.
And then what would this mean for CalRecycle and local recycling facilities that are getting clogged with plastic bags?
I mean, this is really important for all of the waste haulers and the waste stream, because when you see what the plastic bags do inside of those facilities, it really gums up the works. So it's hard for things to proceed through the conveyor belts, and they have to be picked off by hand. And so this is something that will really help the waste haulers.
I have another question. So in the past with these plastics bills and recycling bills, you've seen loopholes emerge, or the plastics industry kind of take advantage of loopholes. These paper bags emerge. Are you concerned that there might be another new thicker plastic bag emerging down the road? And how do you once and for all
Well, the bill is specific about what exactly 100% recyclable paper is. So just the definition of that is really clear. And then also it explicitly excludes things. So yes, it aims to deal with these loopholes by being just much more detailed. And I mean, we deal with problems as they emerge, but we do expect that this will be effective. Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you again, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much.